Listen, I have seen a lot of stupid things in my 342 cycles of existence. I once watched a Glorbian try to eat a plasma grenade because he thought it was a fruit. I saw a Keltorian diplomat accidentally declare war on his own home planet during a speech impediment incident, but nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for the day I met Kira Vance. My name is Threll. Just Threll. No fancy titles, no ceremonial appendages to my designation. I work as a containment specialist on Station Nexus 7, which is basically a glorified zoo for the galaxy's most dangerous creatures. We keep them, study them, and occasionally sell them to the highest bidder. It is not exactly ethical, but when you are a four-armed, green-skinned Vaxian trying to make ends meet in this corner of the cosmos, you take what you can get. The day everything went sideways started like any other. I was doing my morning rounds, checking on the specimens, making sure none of them had figured out how to escape their quantum-sealed habitats. That is when my supervisor, a bloated gas bag named Horvis, floated into my section with that smug expression that meant someone was about to have a really bad day. "Threll," he wheezed, his vocal sacs inflating with self-importance. "We have a situation." I did not even look up from my data pad. Let me guess. The Kragon hatchlings figured out how to melt through Durasteel again. Worse. He paused for dramatic effect, which was completely unnecessary and frankly annoying. "We have a human." My upper left hand froze mid-swipe. "A what? A human? You know, from Earth. That Deathworld everyone keeps talking about." Oh, I knew about Earth all right. Every species in the galactic community knew about Earth. It was the planet where everything, and I do mean everything, was actively trying to kill you. The gravity was absurd. The atmosphere was corrosive. The native life forms were nightmares wrapped in biological warfare. And somehow, impossibly, humans had evolved there and then decided to leave and inflict themselves upon the rest of us. "What is a human doing on my station?" I asked, finally looking up at Horvis. She was caught trying to steal a shipment of Tellurian crystals from Dock 12. Security brought her in about an hour ago. Horvis bobbed closer, lowering his voice. "Here is the thing. Command wants to make an example of her. You know how humans have been pushing into our territories lately, always so confident. Always so arrogant. I did not like where this was going. What does Command want? They want you to put her in with the Ravager." The blood in all four of my hearts went cold. The Ravager. Specimen 093. A creature we had pulled from the death moon of Arcturus Prime, where even the rocks had teeth. It stood 3 meters tall, had claws that could slice through battle armor like wet paper, and a temperament that made feral Grendels look like house pets. We had lost 5 handlers trying to contain it. "Fine, that is murder," I said flatly. Horvis shrugged, which looked ridiculous on a floating gas blob. "That is politics. Besides, she is human. Maybe she will last 5 minutes instead of 2. Either way, we get good footage for the deterrent programs."
I wanted to argue. I really did.
But I also wanted to keep my job and all my internal organs in their current configuration. So I nodded, grabbed my shock prod, and made my way to the holding cells. The human was in cell 7, sitting cross-legged on the metal bench with her eyes closed. She did not look dangerous. She was small by human standards, I guessed. Maybe 1.7 meters tall, with dark hair pulled back in what humans called a ponytail. She wore the tattered remains of what had probably been a decent set of civilian clothes before security got enthusiastic with their stun batons. "Hey," I said, tapping on the energy barrier. "You." Human. Her eyes snapped open, and I got my first good look at them. They were brown. Not the muddy brown of Tyrillian swamps or the warm brown of processed grain. They were the brown of earth soil, deep and rich, and absolutely filled with fury. "Let me guess," she said, standing up in one smooth motion that made my threat assessment reflexes scream. "You are here to tell me I am being transferred to somewhere even less pleasant than this charming accommodation." Her accent was strange, lilting in places I did not expect. But her galactic Coman was perfect. "Something like that," I admitted. "Look, I am going to be straight with you. You picked the wrong station to rob. My bosses want to make a statement. And unfortunately you are the statement." How touching. She walked closer to the barrier, studying me with those unsettling eyes. "Let me guess the rest. You are going to throw me into a cage with some horrible monster I am supposed to die screaming, and everyone learns not to mess with Station Nexus 7. Is that about right?" I blinked, all 3 of my eye sets in surprise. "That is remarkably accurate. Not my first rodeo." She crossed her arms. "So what is it?" acid spitter, bone crusher, telekinetic strangler. We call it the Ravager. For the first time something flickered across her face. Not fear exactly. More like interest. Ravager, that is a very dramatic name. Tell me about it. I do not know why, I answered. Maybe it was professional courtesy. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe I just wanted someone to appreciate the absolute insanity of what we were about to do. 3 meters tall. 6 limbs, all ending in molecular edge claws. Armored hide that can shrug off plasma fire. Predatory intelligence. Incredibly fast. Incredibly mean. We pulled it from Arcturus Prime and it has killed every living thing we have put in its habitat. Arcturus Prime, she repeated thoughtfully. That is the moon with the methane storms and the gravity 3 times Earth normal, right? 2.8 times actually. Close enough. She smiled, and it was not a nice smile. When do we start? That threw me. You are not going to beg, plead, offer me bribes? Would it work? No. Then why waste both our time? She rolled her shoulders, stretching in a way that reminded me uncomfortably of predators limbering up before a hunt. Besides, I have always wanted to see one of these Arcturian megafauna up close. She was insane. She had to be. No sane being from any species would face the Ravager with that kind of casual acceptance. Horvis was waiting at the Ravager's habitat when I brought Kira down in wrist binders. The observation deck was packed with station personnel, all eager to watch the show. I felt the habitat itself was a dome 50 meters in diameter, filled with artificial terrain that mimicked the Ravager's home moon. Jagged rocks, pools of liquid methane, gravity set to 2.8 times standard. The Ravager itself was sleeping in the far corner, a mountain of dark blue hide and barely contained violence. Remove the binders, Horvis ordered. I hesitated, looking at Kira. She met my gaze and nodded once. I removed the restraints. Any last words? Horvis asked, clearly enjoying himself. Kira looked up at him, then at me, then at the assembled crowd. Yeah. You might want to get someone down here with a medical kit. Not for me. For your overgrown lizard when I am done with it. Laughter rippled through the observation deck. Horvis's sacks inflated with indignation. Open the door. The airlock hissed open. The gravity change hit Kira immediately. I saw her knees buckle, watched her catch herself against the doorframe. 3 times Earth gravity. Nearly 3 times what she was used to. She would barely be able to move, let alone fight. She stepped inside anyway. The Ravager's head lifted. Its eyes, all 6 of them, focused on the new arrival in its territory. It rose slowly, deliberately, like an avalanche deciding which direction to fall. The sound it made was somewhere between a growl and a rock slide. Kira stood her ground. Under that crushing gravity, bleeding from where the restraints had cut her wrists. Facing down a literal murder machine, she stood her ground. Hey there, big guy, she said, her voice carrying through the speakers. Rough day. The Ravager charged. I have seen the creature move before, but never with prey in the habitat. It was fast. Impossibly fast. It crossed 30 meters in less than 3 seconds. Claws extended. Jaws wide enough to swallow Kira whole. She moved faster. I do not know how she did it. Under that gravity it should have been impossible. But she threw herself sideways, rolling under the first swipe, coming up in a crouch as the Ravager skidded past. Methane splashed where its claws gouged the ground. Okay, Kira panted, circling away from the creature. Fast. Very fast. That is going to be a problem. The Ravager spun faster than anything that size had any right to move, and lunged again. This time Kira did not dodge. She ran straight at it. The observation deck went silent. At the last possible second, Kira dropped into a slide, her momentum carrying her under the Ravager's belly. As she passed beneath it, her hand shot up and grabbed one of the creature's lower limbs. The joint. I realized with shock. She had grabbed the joint where the armor plates separated. The Ravager roared and thrashed, trying to shake her off. But Kira held on with a grip that should not have been possible, using the creature's own movement to swing herself up onto its back. Holy void! Someone whispered behind me. Kira wrapped both arms around the Ravager's neck, her legs clamping tight around its torso. The creature went absolutely berserk, slamming itself against rocks, rolling, spinning, doing everything in its considerable power to dislodge its passenger. She held on. Minutes passed. 5, 10. The Ravager's movements became more frantic, more desperate. It was tiring itself out. Kira, Despite the crushing gravity, despite the violence, despite every logical reason she should have been paced on the habitat floor. Held, and then she started talking to it. Shh. Her voice came through the speakers, surprisingly gentle. Easy. Easy now. I know. You are scared. You are angry. They took you from your home and stuck you in this box and paraded you around like some kind of trophy. I get it. Believe me, I get it. The Ravager's struggles were weakening. Not from exhaustion. From confusion. You are not a monster, Kira continued, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. You are just lost, and lonely, and so very, very tired of being afraid. I cannot explain what happened next. The Ravager, the creature that had killed 5 of my colleagues without hesitation, slowly sank to the ground. Its breathing slowed, its claws retracted, and Kira impossibly started stroking the side of its head. There we go, she murmured. There we go. You are all right. I have got you. The observation deck had gone from silent to absolutely dead quiet. Horvis looked like someone had just explained mathematics to a particularly stupid rock. Kira looked up at the cameras still sitting on top of the Ravager like it was the most natural thing in the world. Blood dripped from her nose, probably from a vessel bursting under the high gravity, but she was smiling. So, she called out. About my release papers. Someone in the back started laughing. Then someone else. Within seconds, the entire observation deck was roaring with laughter and disbelief and grudging admiration, all except Horvis, whose sacks had deflated to almost nothing. I opened the communications channel. How did you do that? Kira shrugged, the motion causing the Ravager to rumble contentedly. Apex predators recognize each other. This big sweetheart just needed someone to speak his language being survivor. She patted the Ravager's head affectionately. We are both a long way from home. Stuck in places we do not want to be, dealing with people who do not understand us. Right, but the Ravager made a sound that could almost have been agreement. I looked at Horvis. Horvis looked at me. Neither of us had any idea what to do with this situation. Our containment protocols did not cover humans befriending the specimens. That was when command cut into the channel. Bring her up. And the creature. We need to discuss alternative arrangements. Getting Kira out of the habitat turned out to be significantly more complicated than putting her in. Mostly because the Ravager refused to let her leave. I am not joking. The moment we opened the airlock and gestured for Kira to exit, the creature positioned itself between her and the door, making a sound that I can only describe as a 3-ton infant throwing a tantrum. Every time Kira tried to step toward the exit, the Ravager would gently but firmly nudge her back with its massive head. Well, Kira said, scratching behind what I assumed were the creature's ear equivalents. This is awkward. Horvis was having what humans would call a meltdown. His gas sacs kept inflating and deflating rapidly, which in Vaxian body language translated roughly to incomprehensible rage mixed with existential confusion. This is completely unacceptable. That specimen is worth 14 million credits. We cannot just let some Deathworld thief walk out with it. Technically, I pointed out, trying to be helpful and probably making things worse. She is not walking out with it. It is refusing to let her leave without it. That is the same thing, Threll. Kira raised her hand like she was in some kind of classroom. Can I make a suggestion? No! Horvis and I said simultaneously. She made the suggestion anyway. What if we all just calm down for a second and think about this rationally? You have got a creature that has been completely unmanageable for however long you have had it. Kills handlers. Destroys equipment, probably costs you a fortune in containment measures and insurance premiums. Your point? Horvis wheezed. My point is that I have just solved your problem. Look at him. She gestured to the Ravager, who was now sitting on his haunches like an oversized, terrifying puppy. Completely docile. Following commands. Not trying to disembowel anyone. I would say that is a pretty significant improvement over your previous situation. I had to admit, she had a point. In the 20 minutes since Kira had bonded, tamed, befriended, whatever the appropriate term was, the Ravager had not shown a single sign of aggression. It had even retracted all of its claws and closed its mouth, which made it look substantially less nightmarish. Still nightmarish, mind you. Just less so. Command wants to see you, I told Kira, pulling up my communicator. Both of you, apparently. Both of us. Kira looked delighted. Did you hear that, buddy? We are moving up in the world. Or at least up to a different part of the station. The Ravager made a pleased rumbling sound that vibrated through the deck plating. Getting them both to the command center required shutting down 3 major corridors, rerouting traffic through half the station, and giving me stress-induced indigestion that would probably last for weeks. But eventually we made it. The command center was located in the upper ring of the station, a sprawling complex of offices and meeting rooms designed to make visitors feel small and insignificant. The walls were decorated with trophies from successful hunts and containment operations. Stuffed heads, preserved specimens, the kind of decor that screamed we are very dangerous, and you should be appropriately intimidated. Kira looked around with obvious amusement. Subtle. The Ravager looked around with obvious hunger, eyeing a mounted Keltorian ridgehorn like it was considering whether it would make a good snack. Do not even think about it, Kira told him, and the creature immediately sat down. I was still processing the fact that a human had more control over our most dangerous specimen than our entire containment division when the door to the inner office opened. Director Valthus stepped out and I immediately wished I was literally anywhere else. Valthus was a Cronian, which meant he looked like someone had taken a scorpion and a suit of armor, smooshed them together, and given the result delusions of grandeur. He was also mean, cunning, and possessed exactly zero tolerance for anything that disrupted his carefully maintained power structure. So, he said, his voice like gravel being chewed by a garbage compactor. You are the human who has turned my station into a circus. Kira stood up a bit straighter, which was impressive considering she was still dealing with the gravity differential. Guilty as charged. Though in my defense the circus elements were here long before I showed up, I winced. You did not talk back to Director Valthus. People who talked back to Director Valthus tended to have very short, very unpleasant careers, but Valthus just stared at her for a long moment, then made a sound that might have been laughter. I like you. You have got spine. Stupid spine, but spine nonetheless. He walked around her slowly, his many legs clicking against the floor. The Ravager tracked his movement with its eyes but did not otherwise react. Here is my problem, human. You have just made my most valuable specimen worthless. How do you figure? Kira asked. Because the entire value of the Ravager was its reputation as an unstoppable killing machine. Warlords paid top credit to watch it tear apart their enemies. Collectors wanted it for their private death arenas. But now, he gestured at the creature, who was currently trying to get comfortable on the too small floor space. Now it is a pet. Pets do not command premium prices. Sounds like a you problem, Kira said. The temperature in the room dropped about 10 degrees. Horvis made a strangled sound. I started mentally composing my resignation letter. Then Valthus laughed. Actually laughed. You really do not care, do you? You have got no leverage, no allies, no way off this station, and you still talk to me like we are equals. We are equals, Kira said simply. You just have more resources at the moment. That is circumstantial, not inherent. I had never seen anyone render Director Valthus speechless before. It was simultaneously terrifying and fascinating. I have a proposal, Valthus said finally. You work for me, handler and trainer for exotic specimens. You clearly have a gift for it. In exchange, I will wipe your record clean and pay you. Let us say 20,000 credits a cycle. 50,000, Kira countered immediately. Plus full medical accommodation, and my friend here gets proper care and housing instead of being locked in that depressing habitat. 30,000. No medical. The creature gets upgraded quarters. 45,000. Basic medical. Full medical for him. And I want final say on which specimens I work with. I am not going to be part of your blood sport operation. They stared at each other for what felt like an eternity. The Ravager yawned, displaying teeth the size of combat knives. Done, Valthus said. But you step out of line once and both of you get sold to the Keltorian fighting pits. Understood. Crystal clear. Kira extended her hand in the human gesture of agreement. Valthus looked at it like she was offering him a live grenade. What is that?
Handshake.
It is how humans seal deals. Unless you would prefer the vaccine contract binding ritual. But that requires blood and I am already running a bit low. To my absolute amazement, Valthus reached out with one of his claws and awkwardly gripped her hand. Welcome to the team, Kira Vance. Try not to make me regret this. No promises. The next few weeks were, without exaggeration, the strangest of my entire life. Kira moved into quarters near the specimen containment area, which she immediately decorated with what she called creature comforts. Apparently humans needed things like soft surfaces, entertainment screens, and plants to maintain psychological health. The station requisitions department had never been so confused. The Ravager, who Kira had started calling Brick because according to her he is built like one and about as subtle, got moved to a custom habitat 3 times the size of his original enclosure. The habitat included multiple climate zones, enrichment activities, and a specially designed sleeping area that Kira had helped design. Watching a 3-meter-tall apex predator play with puzzle feeders was surreal, but the real surprises came when Kira started working with the other specimens. The Void Serpent, a creature from the dark side of Talos 4 that had been considered completely untrainable, learned to respond to verbal commands within a week. The crystalline spiders from the Helix Nebula, who had previously tried to cocoon and digest anything that came near them, started building decorative web patterns when Kira introduced them to colored fibers. Even the Grendel pack, 12 of the most vicious pack hunters in known space, started treating her like a member of their group. I asked her about it once during one of our routine inspections. "How do you do it?" I gestured at the Grendel enclosure, where she was currently sitting in the middle of the pack, casually grooming one of the alpha females. These creatures have evolved on dozens of different worlds, different biochemistry, different psychology, different everything. But you connect with all of them. Kira looked up from her work. "Want to know a secret? Please. They are not that different from Earth animals. Sure, the details vary, but fear is fear. Loneliness is loneliness. The need for companionship and purpose, that is universal." She scratched the Grendel behind its auditory ridge, and the creature made a sound of contentment. Every animal, regardless of what planet it comes from, just wants to be understood, respected, given a chance to be something other than a weapon or a commodity. "You are talking about more than just animals, are not you?" She smiled, but it was sad around the edges. "I got arrested trying to steal Tellurian crystals. You want to know why?" I nodded. "Because those crystals power medical equipment. Real high-end stuff. The kind that can cure diseases that Earth medicine cannot touch yet. My sister is sick. Has been for 2 years. The treatment she needs costs more money than I could make in 3 lifetimes doing legal work." She paused, absently stroking the Grendel. "So yeah, I tried to steal. Got caught. Figured I would either pull it off or die trying. Both seemed better than watching my sister fade away while I did nothing." I did not know what to say to that. In Vaxian culture, family bonds are somewhat loose. We lay eggs and leave them to hatch communally. The idea of risking everything for a sibling was foreign to me, but I understood desperation. I understood the lengths people would go to for the things they loved. "I'm sorry," I said, because it seemed like the thing to say. "Do not be." "I am not." She stood up, the Grendels parting to let her pass. "I got something better out of the deal. Purpose. And friends." She gestured at Brick, who had wandered over from his habitat to see what we were doing. "Even if my friends are terrifying murder machines." Brick made an offended huffing sound. "Present company excluded, obviously," Kira amended, patting his flank. "That night I did something I probably should not have done. I accessed Kira's arrest records, and started digging deeper. What I found made me seriously question everything about how our station operated. Kira had not been lying about her sister. Medical records confirmed a degenerative neural condition, fatal within 5 years without treatment. Treatment that cost approximately 800,000 credits, but there was more. Before coming to our sector, Kira had worked as a xenobiological consultant. She had credentials from 3 different universities, published papers on interspecies communication, recommendations from some of the most respected scientists in human space. She was not some desperate thief. She was a professional who had been pushed past her breaking point. I brought this information to Valthus the next morning. He listened to my presentation, then leaned back in his chair. "So what do you want me to do about it, Threll?" "She saved her sister's life. Or tried to. That should count for something, should it?" Valthus tapped his claws against his desk. "In the grand scheme of galactic commerce, does one human's family drama really matter?" I thought about Kira sitting in the Grendel enclosure, surrounded by creatures that should have torn her apart. I thought about Brick, who had gone from a monster to a loyal companion. I thought about all the specimens who were thriving under her care. "Yes," I said, "it does." Valthus studied me for a long moment. "You have gotten attached. That is dangerous, Threll." "Maybe, but it is also right." He made that sound that might have been laughter again. "Hun. Fine. Pull 800,000 from the discretionary fund. Medical expenses for contractor family members. Mark it down as a retention bonus." I stared at him. "Seriously, do you know what Kira has done for our operation in just 6 weeks? Specimen mortality is down 40%. Containment breaches are down 60%. We have had 3 offers to license her training methods from other facilities. She is worth far more than 800,000 credits." He paused. "But if you tell her I went soft, I will feed you to the void serpent. Understood. Completely. I found Kira in Brick's habitat, curled up against the creature's side, reading something on a datapad. Brick had one massive arm draped over her protectively. Got a minute? I called out. She looked up, and Brick immediately went into alert mode, placing himself between Kira and the door until she put a hand on his side. Easy, big guy. Threll is good people. She stood up, brushing methane residue off her pants. What is up? I handed her the credit authorization form. She stared at it for a long moment. What is this? Medical fund allocation. For your sister. Apparently Director Valthus believes in taking care of his people. Threll, this is. She looked up at me and I saw something I had never seen in her eyes before. Tears. This is 800,000 credits. I am aware. Why would he do this? I shrugged, all four shoulders moving in unison. Because you are good at your job. Because you have made this station better. Because maybe, occasionally, even in a place like this, someone decides to do the right thing. She was quiet for a long time, just holding the datapad. Then she did something completely unexpected. She hugged me. Humans and their physical contact. I never would understand it. But I did not pull away. Thank you, she whispered. Thank Valthus. I just delivered the message. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. I need to call my sister. Oh God, I need to call my sister right now. Go. Brick and I will hold down the fort. She sprinted out of the habitat with more energy than I had seen from her in weeks. Brick watched her go, then looked at me and made a questioning sound. She is happy, I told him. Good happy. The best kind. Brick seemed satisfied with that answer and settled back down into his resting position. I sat down next to him, all four of my hearts feeling oddly full. You know what the funny thing is? When Kira first arrived, I thought she was just another stupid human who had gotten in over her head. Another example of Deathworld arrogance meeting reality. But I was wrong. Kira was not arrogant. She was desperate, and brave, and impossibly ridiculously competent at things that should have been completely outside her skill set. She had taken our most dangerous specimen and turned him into a friend. She had taken a death sentence and turned it into opportunity. She had looked at impossible odds and decided they were merely inconvenient. That is the thing about humans that I think the rest of the galaxy keeps forgetting. They are not special because they are tough, though they are incredibly tough. They are not special because they are adaptable, though they adapt to nearly anything. They are special because they refuse to accept that anything is truly impossible. You tell a human that something cannot be done and they will do it just to prove you wrong. You put them in a cage with a monster, and they will come out riding it. You give them a problem that has no solution and they will invent one out of spare parts and sheer stubbornness. 3 months after Kira started working for us, Station Nexus 7 had the lowest specimen mortality rate in the sector. We had trainers from 6 different facilities asking for consultations. We had researchers petitioning to study Kira's method, and we had one very happy Ravager who spent his days playing with puzzle toys and his evenings curled up next to the strangest, bravest human I had ever met. Director Valthus called me into his office one last time, a few days before Kira's sister was scheduled to complete her treatment. I am giving Kira a promotion, he said without preamble. Head of Specimen Relations, 50% raise, full benefits, and a research budget to develop humane containment protocols. I felt pride swell in my chest. She will be thrilled. There is a condition. Of course there was. Which is, she has to train you and 2 others in her methods. I want redundancy. If something happens to her, I need people who can maintain what she has built. I accept. Valthus looked surprised. I have not told you the salary adjustment yet. Does not matter, I want to learn from her. She has shown me that there is a better way to do this job. A way that does not require treating these creatures like objects. He nodded slowly. You have changed, Threll. When Kira first arrived, you were just going through the motions. Now you actually care. She has that effect on people. And apparently on terrifying alien monsters too. That evening I found Kira and Brick in the observation lounge looking out at the stars. She was telling him about Earth, describing oceans and forests and all the strange beautiful things from her homeworld. Brick listened with rapt attention, occasionally making sounds that might have been questions. Mind if I join you? I asked. Always room for one more. Kira patted the space beside her. I settled in, watching the stars drift past the viewport. Threll told me about the promotion, Kira said after a while. Thank you. For everything. I came here expecting to die and instead I found a home. We should be thanking you. You changed everything. She laughed. I just treated everyone with basic decency. The fact that counts as revolutionary around here says some unfortunate things about galactic society. Brick rumbled in agreement. To new beginnings, I said, raising an imaginary glass. To found families, Kira added. To proving impossible things possible, we said together. And somewhere in the dark between stars, on a station full of monsters and misfits, 3 completely different beings sat together and watched the universe spin on. Because that is the thing about humans. They do not just survive impossible situations, they build families in them. They find hope in darkness. They take broken things and make them whole. Kira Vance walked into a cage with a monster and came back riding it. But more than that, she taught the monster that it did not have to be a monster anymore. She taught the station that profit did not have to come from suffering. She taught me that change was possible even in the most unlikely places, and she did it all with sarcasm, stubbornness, and an absolutely unshakable belief that things could be better. That is humanity for you. Absolutely impossible. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely worth believing in.